So this is the self-development with tactics book.
So, this one's gonna be about asking yourself questions, which is actually something that I've been talking about just really often, but I think it is just as important enough that I actually do make an episode primarily for that. And therefore, so this is also an episode where I go through a few questions that you might be asking yourself or that might help you when you're asking yourself them. But yeah, as always, more after the intro. As every day! Because it's amazing, because it's insane. Even though in the last few months I've actually seen that some episodes that I've recorded or recording some episodes haven't been that nice. And I actually do not know why. On some days it's not that nice to record. Maybe I do just need some breaks during the time, which is something that I rarely do, to be honest. But yeah. And if you're just viewing this on YouTube, then please consider going down into the description because there should be the link to the podcast since this is actually a podcast. And then you can actually listen to this as it would be an audiobook, which might be something for a lot of people and which might also be something that a lot of people do not want to have. And therefore I'm having both the YouTube video and also just the podcast. It's basically the same, so it's only for those people that like the podcast more and for those people that like the YouTube video more. So you can decide basically. So please consider going into the description and or in the show notes if you're in the podcast or on the podcast, and then just choose and or decide whether you want to switch kind of the platform or not. But yeah, as I said before, we're going through some questions and I thought like, well, I just type in questions you should ask yourself or something like that into Google, and this was one of the first websites that I've seen. I'm probably going to go through a bunch of questions and I'm also going to talk about them. But I guess, and at my point of view, asking yourself questions is something that's particularly important. And I don't know what the websites say. I'm merely going to go through the questions you should be asking yourself or you could be asking yourself. But I think it is actually a pretty good way to, first of all, understand yourself better, maybe also understand the world better and or other people better, because you have to think, you make yourself thinking. And this is, I think, kind of the beauty of asking yourself questions. And they're just a bunch of questions that are truly important, at least at my point of view or in my point of view. And let's actually go through them. The first one is, who am I really? I think it is just, the first time as I was reading it, I have to say that I was primarily thinking about legacy, which means like, who am I going to be remembered for? And this is really something to consider. And this is really something to think about, because who are you really? Who are you meant to be? And are you truthful to yourself, or are you honest to yourself? Because I think that a lot of people aren't honest to themselves in terms of the things that they are willing to do or willing to become. Because, for example, not everyone's going to be an entrepreneur. Not everyone's going to be an athlete. It is what it is. But I think in terms of athlete and so being an athlete or not being an athlete, I think it's clear. I think it's just pretty clear that some people are not going to be an athlete. And people understand it as well. And this is kind of pretty cool. But in other areas and just in terms of other things, people don't always realize that. For example, if it is about being an entrepreneur or not, being a businessman or businesswoman actually or not, just those things that are indeed as important just as the athlete and or no athlete questions. But still, I think a lot of people aren't really truthful about that to themselves. And just consider this. So who am I, or who are you, and who are you willing to be, and what are you willing to do? The second thing is, what worries me most about the future? And this might actually then be something that you should be preventing yourself from worrying, which means that you're gonna just solve it for you. If you kind of feel like that you're worried that you're not gonna have enough money in the future, then probably gonna invest or probably gonna save more money than you're doing at this point in time. And therefore, it is actually indeed also a pretty amazing question, because it somehow actually forces you to do something about it. And it somehow forces you to just actually have a look into the future, which is something that you might be doing naturally. Some people are not doing that, and some people are definitely gonna do that on a daily basis and whatnot. But I think it is also a great reminder for also me and myself and I. But just in general, I think it's a great reminder. And I would in general say that all those questions are great reminders for just thinking about yourself and thinking about your life and seeing if you're on the right track. If you're on the right track you actually want to be on, and just those things, I think it's really important. I'm probably going to say this just 100 more times in the episode. The third one, if this were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm doing about to do today? Pretty fucked up and complicated question, but I think it is a good one. Because especially I think it is about work, would you really be working what you're working on this day, or would you be doing something different? Or would you just be doing something with your family instead of working? Do you just actually have to shift your focus? Do you have to shift your life to another just area, or focus on other things way more than you're focusing on them at this point in time? Like, it's again a good question. So I'm going to repeat it. If this were the last day of my life or of your life, would you want to do what you're going to do today, or what you're about to do today? The fourth one, what am I really scared of? And this is probably going to be a lot of bullshit there, because we're often just scared. Like, being scared of something is totally fine. But most often it is the case that we are scared of things that really, shouldn't scare us actually, because there is actually no reason. Of course, if you're just if you're scared of heights, I think that's totally fine, and that's totally good as well, because your body's preventing you from basically dying. And this is one of the reasons that, at least in my point of view, at least as I can somehow consider it and think about it, this is kind of one of the reasons why we're actually having fears, so that we're not going to die, so that we kind of are not going to put us in certain situations that are actually threatening our lives. This is kind of, at least how I think about them, one of the reasons why we're actually having fears and we are scared of certain things. But at this day and age, there isn't really a lot to be feared of. Like, a lot of people are feared of communicating to other people, and there is no real reason why you should be scared of that, or you should be fearing that, because they are just people. And it would be the exact same thing as somebody would come up to you and just ask you. It's the same, only that you're doing it to another person, basically. So there are a lot of things that shouldn't really scare us and are still scaring us, even though there's no particular reason. And I do think this is a question that's also important, so that you actually can figure out what you're feared of or scared of, and then also just actually seeing that it does make any fucking sense, and that there's actually no fucking reason why you're scared of that, or that you're scared of this particular thing, which I think is probably going to happen to some people, that they actually then realize, well, why am I scared of that? It doesn't actually make any sense, because it is nothing to be scared of, or something like that. Maybe the exact same thing, who knows? Who really knows? The fifth one, am I holding on to something I need to let go of? Which I think the questions above are really universal, and you can ask them at every certain point and whatnot. But I guess the fifth one is more like in specific situations. For example, when you are in a relationship you're not really happy in, is it easier for me and also easier for the other person, and also better for the other person when I just, let this particular person go? Which is actually also something that I've been thinking about in my relationship, because it is really not easy to be in a relationship with me, at least in my point of view, because I'm doing a lot, I'm just trying to work a lot, I'm trying to just do a lot for myself basically as well, and it is not always very easy with me, especially also not because I tend to not spend any money, and this is also kind of a thing that I'm doing, so I'm not going to change that somehow. So there's a lot of trade-offs you have to do with being in a relationship with myself, at least in my point of view. And then I also thought to myself, just because I'm willing to do good, and I'm willing to just do good to other people as well, especially to those people that I'm in a relationship within. It doesn't really matter which relationship it is, whether it's a friendship or just a sexual relationship. But I kind of feel like, well, if I just let her go, would it be better for her? Would it be just making her happier? And it is still something that I'm thinking about, since there is just gonna be some arguments in the next years as well, or in the next months as well. And I think it's just gonna be something that's in your head if you are in particular situations. But I don't know, like, asking yourself this in general might also be a good thing. But yeah, the next one. If not now, then when? This is somehow related to us not actually doing something or trying something that we should be trying, which is often the case. And, often it involves some sort of risk and some sort of maybe even fear as well. Maybe just changing your job, going into another industry, going into just a completely different area and whatnot. So when should you do it? In the next 10 years? It definitely comes up to what age you're in or what age you are. If you're just 50 years old, which apparently is somehow the case for the people that are listening on Spotify, as I've actually had a look at the analytics like a few days ago. I think it's been yesterday or something. It's pretty interesting to see that like there's a lot of young people, really a lot of young people, but there's also quite some older people, which is amazing to have, because we all have experienced something. And especially older people, they have quite experienced just really a lot, which is something that a lot of, especially younger people, I would say, can contribute off of. It's just nice. It's just really nice to have just all sorts of people around, ethnicities, just ages, genders. Nice, really nice, really, really, really nice. But do it now, I guess. It is a saying and it is maybe a cliche thing to say, but yesterday was the best day to do something. Today is the second best day, and tomorrow is going to be the third best day, basically, to do something. And I really believe in that. I really believe in that you should actually start something right now, or right today, because you're probably going to have the motivation today. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I don't know if you're going to have the motivation tomorrow as well to do something that you're really passionate about, or do something that you actually want to do. So therefore, just consider doing it now, or at least today. But I think now is kind of the best time to do something, since today, which might be in 5 hours, that might not just be the motivation any longer, just because we are living life, just because there are certain things that happen in our lives, just because we also forget about things, which is something that happens to me so often. Like I really tend to forget everything. It is amazing sometimes. I kind of forget something from one moment to the other, which is sometimes really good. If it is something that really is pissing me off and I'm just forgetting about it, that's pretty cool. Not saying that you should do this as well, since it's probably going to lead you to just not being able to cope with particular things and them staying in your mind, but in your subconscious mind. Maybe this is something that happens to me every day. I don't know. I haven't had a look at such things just through professional help, I guess. If this is somehow possible, I don't know. But yeah. The next one, which is the 7th one actually. What matters most in my life? And this is going to be just about preferences and going to be about values. And this is amazing because your decisions in life should be really based on your values and also preferences. Because why not? It wouldn't make any sense to just not care about your preferences and also values in your life. Why are you then having values and preferences? Or is like these things that you think are your preferences and also values, are they really your values? Just another question maybe to consider. If you're kind of seeing that you're not really give a fuck about the values you think you're having, and then maybe you just somehow changed them or shifted them just some time ago, and now you have to shift them again so that it actually is everything aligned. Could be the case. Could really be the case. The 8th one. What am I doing about the things that matter most in my life? Which basically is somehow correlated to the 7th one, at least at my point of view. But what I'm seeing there is that seeing that you're valuing something and seeing that you should be doing something, but you're still not doing it, which is pretty common. Like a lot of people are dreaming about things, and a lot of people are also talking about things, which is a very common thing, at least as I've seen it as well. And but we should do more. Like doing and working and creating and executing is actually the variable. It's not learning. It is not watching cool motivational YouTube videos, and it is also not listening to the fucking podcast right now. It is just doing something. Of course, just listening to things and consuming things, whether it is podcasts, videos, articles, books, whatever it is, information is really important. And also just having the inspiration and getting the motivation through those things is very important. But in the end, it is about execution. In the end, it is about doing something. In the real end, it is about the work. Work is the variable, something that I'm spreading like just 10 times a day, some sort of, just in my mind. It's constantly in my mind. And this is also one of the reasons why I kind of feel like investing into books is something that I consider, and also investing in knowledge in general is something that I consider. But it really is something that I kind of feel like, should I really be doing that? Since working and doing is the variable, or should I just be doing more? And it is also something that I always talk about or think about when I'm just thinking about investing into new equipment, especially a microphone, because I'm not really having a microphone, and I'm having the money. Like I could do that, but I'm just tending to not do it, since I think it wouldn't really or necessarily make the podcast better. Since most often I kind of feel like that the podcast is not as good as it could be because of me, because of my abilities, because of my talking, because of these things that I'm doing here, which is putting out value, I guess. This is quite one of the factors that's the most important. The equipment, the lighting, the camera that I'm using, it's everything of that is some kind of secondary, at least at my point of view, at least as also as I have experienced it, Most often you can see that some things that are really high in demand are really not so high in quality and or haven't. Like, let's talk about PewDiePie. There was a fucking meme around that his quality was really shit. And I think it was quite fine. Like 720p is fine, the audio was fine, whatnot. Some episodes and or some videos weren't that fine, of course. But it really wasn't about the quality. It actually got a meme, which is something relatively good, I have to say. But it's not really so often about the quality. And I think it is something that is easily to be focusing on. And it is something that's easily to be changed. But it is just because, like, trying to get better at your craft, at whatever you're doing, it's not easy, because it takes some time and it takes effort and it takes practice and it takes learning and it takes execution, a lot of execution. And therefore I kind of think like, well, I'm going to invest into new stuff when I'm just basically earning something with what I'm doing. I think this is then just the point where I have to say like, okay, I'm just generating money through what I'm doing. I can invest now. I can just kind of pull up the quality. I can do something with the quality. I can make everything a little bit better by doing better things and or making better things. This is from Seth Godin. I like it. Making things better by making better things. It's amazing. I really like it. The next question. Is it the 8th one? What am I doing about the things that matter most in my life? I think it's the 9th one. What do I matter? Is it like, do I matter? I quite don't understand this question, therefore I'm gonna skip it. The 10th one. Have I done anything lately worth remembering? This is a good one. This is really a good one, and I think it is actually a good one to remember yourself on the fact that you are doing some things. Because we often are really, really tough to ourselves. And I think that's pretty good on one hand and really shitty on the other hand, Especially if you are in a position where you're actually doing a lot, that you're working a lot, that you're just having a family, and which is also work, which is also doing something. And then just remembering yourself on the fact that, okay, I'm having 2 kids and they are having certain qualities and I have done the thing in the past and I have done this drawing and I have done this shop and I have done whatever. I think it's pretty important. It's pretty important to just know your worth and understand that you have been doing something and understand that what you have been doing was quite great. I do not have to say, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the case that it was amazing and just really good and cool and whatnot, but you probably did something you're proud of, even though you're not 100% proud of it. Like if it is 50 or 70%, it's, I think, enough, it's enough to remember. It's enough to just say, I did that. And this is also one of the reasons why I think that doing something every single day, whether it be a blog, as Seth Godin actually says often, whether it be a podcast, which might be something that a lot of people are really into just because it is easy. Like, I think blogging is, I guess, just the easiest thing of them all. Since you do just have to sit there and write something, and there is nothing that could stop you from doing that. When you're podcasting, you actually have to talk, and you actually have to record, and those things, and that might be heard by some other people in your house, in your flat, in your just, I don't know, whatever you're living in. People might hear that, and this might be something that you're not really kind of looking forward to and whatnot, and then also they can say that it is from you because they hear your voice. So there are certain reasons why some people might not be just really into podcasting, I guess, at least. And blogging is just pretty easy. You have to sit there, you have to write something, and that's quite it. And people are probably gonna read it. Like, I've just put some articles onto Medium, and people have actually kind of celebrated it or appreciated it. It's called something on the platform. Like, they have liked it, basically, And it's amazing because I'm only kind of posting 1-minute reads. So really short ones, really short ideas, really short things that are in my head, some things that I'm just thinking about and asking myself as well. And they just still find the people, or people find the stuff that I'm putting out there. And I've also lately seen that the podcast is quite doing well. Like in the last 3 days or something, people have actually been listening to the podcast, which is something that's incredibly amazing for me, because of the amount of work that I put into that. But coming back to the initial thought, when you're doing something every single day, whether it be a blog, a podcast, videos, content in general, designing something, you can say, I did that. In a year, you can go back or you can look back and say, I did that. I did that particular thing. I did that post. I did that fucking blog post, which is also something that Seth Godin said. And I think you can then see that you've done something worth remembering by just looking back into your past and seeing, well, I did something there. It's amazing. I like it. The 11th one. Have I made someone smile today? I think that's a really good one. That's a really good one. That's a really good one to actually remember to actually do something for the people around you. Because we are so focused on ourselves and we are so focused on our craft, on our podcast, on our blog posts, on our business, on our shit, that we really tend to kind of forget about the people around us. But they really matter. Not just only because of networking and just then in the end just having upsides for yourself. Not talking about that necessarily, but making somebody smile today by, for example, actually also smiling at them is something that's pretty cool. I really like that. And if you're doing that, I appreciate that. If you're actually just trying to make somebody's life better through smiling at them, like it doesn't necessarily have to be somebody that you actually know. Like if you're smiling at a stranger and he or she smiles back, or if you're giving them a compliment like, okay, I like your shoes, something that is honest and truthful, they like it. You just have to think about being the other person then. If some stranger comes up to you and is like, well, I like your fucking shoes, they really look cool, how would you feel? Wouldn't you feel amazing? Wouldn't you feel like, well, like actually looking at your shoes and being like, well, yeah, they actually are cool. And then you're having a good day, probably. And you're gonna maybe even talk to somebody else like, okay, there was a stranger today and he said that my fucking shoes are cool. And maybe then the coworker you're talking with is also going to be like, well, I also like your shoes. They actually indeed are amazing. The thing is, we are really rarely talking to people in such a way. We are really rarely kind of coming up to people and getting up to people and telling them that something is cool about them. It is really not something that we all are doing, unfortunately. Really, unfortunately. I'm really trying to do that. I'm really trying to do that in my life and just trying to especially about compliments, which is something that's so easy. Whether it is a girl, whether it is a boy, whether it is just your fucking teacher being like, well, today's lesson was amazing. Today's lesson was pretty cool. I've learned a lot of things. Thank you for that. It is just something that means a lot to those people. Just because nobody's telling them. Just because not such a lot of people are just coming up to teachers or to your boss and whatnot. And not really a lot of people are like, okay, I've liked it, what you did. Not a lot of people are giving compliments to other people. Something that happens, and therefore just being the change and doing something in a different way, like actually coming up to the people and giving them a compliment, is amazing. It really is indeed amazing. So please do that. I would really appreciate that. I would really appreciate you if you're just coming up to somebody and telling them, I like whatever is about them. Whatever is about them, whether it is actually their smile, like so many things. There's so many things you could compliment. The 12th question. What have I given up on? I'm just thinking whether this is a kind of a good question to ask yourself. Like, if it is in a positive way or in a negative way. But I think it could also just, get you back into the present. If I kind of feel like, what have I given up? I probably have given up playing soccer, which is something that has been my life quite when I was a little kid. And I've always wanted to just be a pro soccer player and whatnot. It's been my dream, and I have given up on it just because I had to go to school, and my parents decided that it's not a good thing to just play soccer and be in school just because I had to be good in school. And I've also been like, well, yeah, and just because my trainer wasn't that nice, because we had to change trainers and whatnot, and our coaches actually, and it's like various factors and various things. And I still look back on it, with thinking like, should I have kept playing? And I have been playing like 2 years ago. I've started once again, and I've actually been able to just win a silver medal, I guess you can say, basically, which is a pretty cool thing. Like for the first kind of season that I played, then just actually then winning something as well. It's amazing. It's pretty cool. It really is. But I think this is actually a pretty good question to remind yourself on these things that you could have been doing. And it doesn't necessarily mean that which means that you can also just do them once again. Only because you have given up on them just in the past doesn't necessarily mean that you have to give up on them in the present as well. Maybe this is just a great question to remind yourself on those things that you could also be doing. And maybe change them. Maybe you shift fucking your labor, actually from having a corporate job that you are at or you have been at for, 20 years, and now you're doing something else. Just because you have realized that you actually wanted to do something else when you were a little kid. Which is, I guess, something that some people might experience. But yeah, I guess this is going to be the end of the episode, since we went through quite some questions. And this episode has been amazing. And I'm really thankful for that. I'm really grateful for that, because I know that it also is being different on other days. Like yesterday's episode that I recorded was complete bullshit. I'm still gonna upload it, even though I haven't really liked it. And in certain parts of the whole episode, I've had to actually stop talking because I wasn't able to talk, and I still don't know why. To be honest, I really don't know why. Maybe I do just need more breaks, as I said, but I'm having to figure that out, I guess. Or maybe I'm just putting myself under too much pressure, and I'm not really appreciating the thing that I'm able to do here, that I'm able to communicate with people, and that at this point of moment, people actually are listening, which is still amazing, which I'm so grateful for. Like, I don't know, like, if this is continuing like that, I guess I actually have to cry, just because it's been some work, and I finally somehow can understand those people that really have been achieving what they always wanted to achieve, and then they cry, and then they're really emotional, and I can understand that. I can really understand that. It's only been a year. Like, a year is quite nothing compared to what other people did, but I don't know, like, it's amazing. Thanks for that. Really, thank you for all the people that are listening, for all the people that are watching. I appreciate it so tremendously. I really do. Like, it's just amazing. Thank you. Really, you, this person, is just sitting there listening, and or just maybe actually going, walking and listening, and or sitting there and whatever, watching the YouTube video. I appreciate that. I appreciate that you're listening and watching what I'm producing there. I tremendously appreciate that. But yeah, I'm wishing you the best health, of happiness, and also success. And I also hope that you're going to remind yourself when you're going to be remembered, which means that you're just going to be a nice person and also going to be remembered as a nice person, which is something that we all can do pretty easily. Like, it's cool. We can do that. The only downside of it is that we are 7.7 billion people on this planet, which means that there is just going to be a few people that hate us and or just dislike us. But 3 other questions that I hope that you're going to ask yourself are: why are you here? What are you trying to change? And what is bothering you the most? These 3 questions are hopefully going to show you your purpose and maybe even a business idea, since a lot of companies started out with solving something that really pissed them off in the very beginning. But yeah, I'm gonna see you the next time. I at least hope. So please stay subscribed, and or please subscribe to the YouTube channel and also the podcast if you have liked it and if you want to see more, because I'm gonna be there. There is gonna be content every single day on various platforms. You know, not only the podcast and not only the YouTube video, but also on just Instagram, Facebook, all the other platforms. But I'm gonna see you the next time. And thanks a lot once again. I appreciate that.